Okay, it looks like we are running. Welcome to Evolution Hour on the 13th of July, 2026. Ongoing year of what the hell is going on here? Don't blame me, I voted for Harris. Anyway, and remember all that cute stuff at tortuganwordpress.com that people can share and share alike because it still holding up pretty good, even though a few little fiddly bits come along down the way. Sorry for being on almost ridiculously late, an hour or so, because I got caught up watching a rather interesting autopsy video on the Trump Prophecies movie that came out in 2018 that was based on this guy's supposed revelation that Trump would win the 2016 election. And his life was transformed. Anyway, I probably wouldn't have paid quite so much attention to it, except it turns out that Liberty University was behind this particular video, and it was just a pile up of familiar culture camp names, Barton and others that popped up in all of this stuff, and the pro-Netanyahu culture camp obsessions of the video didn't apparently wear well, and it didn't even do a hell of a lot well, even among MAGA supporters who thought it was a tendentious screed. But anyway, so I was watching through all of that because it's the fellow that was doing the critical video on it saves me the trouble of having to watch this stupid thing in any great detail. Why is it that apologetic dramas written from a defensive point of view tend to be such crap, opposed to some of the most moving tales with religious connotations are often written by people who are not necessarily terribly religious. But anyway, mystery of life. Anyway, here we are, hour late, but so much as it is, and we are dealing with our from the 1970s and the 1990s, going through them source by effing source. Most of the time, he simply repeats the later book. Once in a while, tidbits. Been nothing that he's lopped out, which I find rather intriguing. Next week, it's going to be an awful lot of creationist lore, because a big swath of this geology chapter is just reprising why young earth creationist theology has to be correct. And so there's a bunch of Henry Moore stuff and so forth and so on. How much of that I'll be able to put links up to is another matter. But we have a little nugget from this initial phrase. Gish is mentioning, quote, "The Cumberland bone cave of Maryland, containing fossilized remains of dozens of species of mammals, from bats to mastodons, along with the fossils of some reptiles and birds, including animals which now have accommodated to different climates and habitats from the Arctic region to tropical zones. Neither has the uniformitarian concept been sufficient to explain mountain building, nor the formation of such vast lava beds as the Columbian Plateau in the northwest United States, a lava bed several thousand feet thick, covering 200,000 square miles. Dun, dun, dun. Well, oh, and by the way, this is a Luskin week, so we'll also be putting material up on another non-spoiler alert. The material ain't helping them still. Anyway, the Cumberland Bone Cave is kind of a little minor bliplet that required a little bit of background research to clarify, and we'll be getting to that in a moment. But it's the reason why he's dangling this stuff is to imply that there's sort of anomalous fossils and fossil graveyard bits. And of course, the Columbia Basalt has this inexplicable thing. Well, the Columbia Basalt thing I had bumped into quite a ways back already, including the ones in the Gish 78 and 95 books that got filtered around through a couple other creationists. Scott Huse in 1997 and Richard Milton in that same year. And it's a funky detail because neither Gish nor Milton offered a citation on it. And I suspect that may trace back to Emanuel Velikovsky's Earth in Upheaval from 1955, which also used that 200,000 square mile figure. And the reason why that's a diagnostic detail is dun, 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 the Columbian Basalt, hi, Lisa, is not 200,000 square miles in size. And I had bumped into this because spoiler alert, I live on the Columbia Basalt, or at least the edge of it in Spokane, Washington. So, I mean, I'm familiar with this. I'm driving across it whenever I travel. So I'm encountering it all the time. I've been on the other side of it, going down into Oregon and into Idaho, to that little section. And if you just take, here, we'll show the reasoning. Oh, yes, Graham. Yes, Graham has passed off this mortal coil under the assumption that there's no afterlife. He will never know what an absolute jerk he was in supporting Donald Trump. Well, now we're going to have to figure out who's going to get appointed to replace him, and there's going to be some tumult in the Senate as a result of that. Whether or not McConnell, who's operating at the death's door himself, follows suit soon enough, we don't know. It's still got a little ways to go before the election, kids. Anyway, wonderful world. Whatever respect one might have had for Graham back in the tax cutty days and stuff 20, 30 years ago, and how personable he could be. His Rubicon moment was when he failed to denounce or make good on his denunciation of Trump after January 6th, and instead ended up being a Trump suck up from that point on all the way into this administration. So he's, to my mind, was somebody whose greed and ambition for power overrode any conscience the man had. And so do I grieve his passing? Nope. There are a few little minor bliplets that might have a positive role in the matter, but it's all completely overshadowed by his becoming a shameless and pathetic Trumpista. He was the one, after all, who said that if Trump became head of the Republican Party, it would destroy it and they'd deserve it. I sure hope so. If it calls for a special election, that could be fun. We'll see how that goes. Woo! Anyway, off from the politics world, back to the Columbia Basalt. So, the thing that piqued my curiosity way back, because this is material that's in the old Troubles in Paradise stuff, going way back, was that if you just took the rough figure, 200,000 square miles, and took the square root of it, you end up with 450 miles on the side. And I know from the size of the region that the Columbia Basalt's starting to peter out after about 120, 130 miles west of Spokane, and maybe 80, 100 miles to the east up into Idaho, and then down maybe 100 to 150 miles at most down into segments of Oregon. So it's only 280 miles to Seattle, and therefore the mileage numbers, they just didn't make sense. I realized the Columbia Basalt couldn't possibly be 200,000 square miles, and it isn't. It turns out the entire 3 states, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho, adds up to 210,000 or 215,000 square miles. And so clearly the number had to be smaller than that. The moment you start looking up the numbers, you discover what's going on. The basalt has about 210,000 cubic kilometers of volume, a surface exposure of 160,000 kilometers, or 63,000 square miles, meaning Gish was giving a number that was 3 times bigger. Is that where the fossils of Pachycephalosaurus are? Oh, no, gosh, no. But Columbia Basalt is volcanic rock. It's a great big squirt of material and went over from roughly 17 to 13 million years ago, although little segment about 6 million years ago. And Pachycephalosaurus, I suspect that stuff, the ceratopsids in general, are coming in like Montana, more stuff like that. The region in Oregon, Idaho is shit-assed when it comes to paleontology. We've got little snippets, and hello there, Tabula Rasa. We've got little snippets of geological material, paleontological material, occasional Cambrian trilobites. You got some little John Day fossil beds, a few little things like that. But we are really boring when it comes to a lot of paleontology area. All the really juicy stuff is farther east and in other spots. And North Heller up in Edmonton. And that's because the basalt basically swathed over everything. So we don't know what's going on underneath all of that unless you want to burrow down through thousands of feet worth of volcanic rock. But geologically speaking, we are hot stuff. And we're in fact going to be making great discussions of all of that in Rocks Were There, Volume 2, which we are currently working on, the last couple chapters of which. Anyway, back to the physical dimensions of all of this. Richard Milton was the one that really went overboard. He's a British creationist, well, anti-evolutionist, but not religious. Surprising. Weird circumstance. He's kind of a weird contrarian, had a lot of the same kind of screwball attitudes that I had 30 years ago, that he apparently never worked his way out of. But anyway, Milton couldn't resist some hyperbole when he was bringing up the Columbia basalt. He said, this quantity of lava exceeds by many orders of magnitude all the lava flows from all the world's currently active volcanoes. Really? So let's look at what the data is here. We got the Columbia basalt, which you can envisage it roughly filling out half of Washington state on the eastern side, most of northern Idaho, little segments of southern Idaho, and about the upper quadrant on the east side of Oregon. And it was spewing out as a kind of an offshoot, we now know, from the Yellowstone hotspot. That's all part of that dynamic that was going on. Anyway, individual eruptions involved at most about 500 cubic miles of lava, which is a lot of stuff, but not maybe as much as you might think. The average flow was apparently only around 130 cubic miles. To put this into perspective, the minor Hawaiian volcano erupted 1/50th of a cubic mile of lava over just a 3-year period in the 1980s, meaning 500 cubic miles would require only around 7,500 years to do. And remember, we're talking about a volcanic system that was running on for millions of years. So this is not all that surprising. Keep that up for 5 million years, and you can get Mauna Loa, which is very much an active volcano and comprises 18,000 to 24,000 cubic miles of lava all on its own. One volcano. Not all the volcanoes on Earth. So, spoiler alert, Richard Milton never bothered ever to add up the numbers. He just riffed off of all of this stuff, plus the fact that he, secondarily from God knows who, although I suspect Velikovsky, was getting this number that was 3 times bigger than the actual size of the Columbia basalt. So, la-di-da. Anyway, our main show here that we're going to be actually giving you some sources on has to do with that other bit about the damn Columbian cave, Cumberland cave. Gish cited only one source for the bloody thing. It was the first page of a 1953 piece, Scientific Monthly, by Brother Nicholas, who was a Jesuit priest. I guess his full name is Nicholas Sullivan, but he just always went in the literature just by Nicholas. And fortunately, although I was able to find the whole text of the article my own, I couldn't get you a full link on it, but we don't need that because Gish only cited page 1, and that's the link that's up on our material at JSTOR so that you can see it yourself. And yeah, Gerardus Nicholas Sullivan. Oops, I need to take my things over here. Boop, 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 boop. Did in fact do research in this area. Oops, whoops. I got to watch out that I'm typing on more than one keyboard here. Correcting a sentence here in my screed, and I realize I was typing on the laptop. My bad. Anyway, he was doing excavation works in the 1950s, a perfectly serious material, but not absolutely perfect. And so I naturally wanted to find out a little bit more about all of this, but it was fair to say that, yes, indeed, Sullivan was thinking that there were animals that were found in this deposit, which was a sinkhole where critters were falling into it. Sullivan's own argument is not claiming that there's anything mysterious about all of this. It's taking place over quite a long period of time, blah, blah, blah. And that some of the animals there have forms that are currently living in much broader range, some of them down in like tropics, some of them all the way up into the Arctic, and that this is a curious relationship to look at. But Gish was trying to imply that this is somehow an indication of the big slosh flood event. That would be the only way you could possibly account for all of this stuff. We'll find out whether or not he ever brings up Cumberland later on in the book or not as we plow down through it, but that's neither here nor there. The main point is what was going on. The first things I encountered were some fairly general pieces. One from 2006 by Arnold Norden that I'll be putting a link up to at archive.org. It's from a piece from Maryland. It's in Maryland, discussing it. And his description was fairly clear enough. Because the bones in the cave were moved around by water and scattered by the feet of trapped animals, there are no intact skeletons. Rather, the bones were buried and preserved like a complex fossil salad with bits and pieces mixed together helter-skelter into a matrix of bone, clay, and calcium carbonate. So nothing all that ridiculous or weird about it. Then jump down to 2025. And remember, Gish is dead by 2006. And he was only offering this 1953 resource, and there was probably not a colossal amount of material available. Nothing online to begin with. That doesn't exist back in those days. So I'm cutting him some slack in that he could be legitimately riffing off of this one lowly little source from 1953 to kind of give him the whole spin. The fun part is we live in the 21st century, so we can look at things more, because Pat McShay 2025, which is from the Carnegie Museum, is giving a summary segment, and it also is alluding to a big 2025 monograph that fortunately is available full text, and so I will be putting a link up to that. We'll be getting all of that stuff in a bit. So the McShay piece in 2025 is summarizing that the cave fossils, which again are all fragments, they're falling into a sinkhole over a very long time and varying climate over this time. So McShay is writing, quote, the fauna list for the site's vertebrate fossils alone includes 109 creatures ranging in size from mole to mastodon, and the deposition of these remains over a period of several thousand years happened more than 700,000 years ago, unquote. So that puts it into the frameworks. I'm up at 3 a.m. studying GRNs. I'm going to die. Well, there we go. Yes. Answers in atheism. Well, I haven't seen you in quite some time there. We would be bumping into each other with the late Sci-Strike shows and all that. Hope you're doing well there. It was always a delight listening to your talks on technical matters and vice versa. So anyway, the Eshelman paper is the great big thing, because this is a monster monograph. It's like 300 some odd pages long. It delves into everything you could ever possibly want to know about this stupid little cave deposit, with detailed breakdowns and pictures and listings of all of the paleontological ups and downs and ins and outs over the years, paleoclimate material and all of that. And particularly relevant is a little bit on page 35, specifically referring to Brother Nicholas. And it was to say, quote, Nicholas mistakenly mentioned the presence of grizzly bear in the CBLCF. That was taken as another representative of a, quote, boreal or, quote, Arctic faunal component in the deposit. And a bit later then, Eshelman paper wrote, CBC has become a focal point for some anti-science groups who misuse or misunderstand the faunal data from the cave deposits and or the excavation history at the site to support claims for Noachian-style great flood in the region in the past, unquote, which on the very next page, then they note, is simply ruled out as an explanation. The detailed forensics of what's been found in the deposit, the toponymy of them, all the paleoclimate information and all that is simply inexplicable and wrong to imply that it has anything to do with the flood. The fact that they're bringing this up indicates that there is kind of like a back substructure of this, because I didn't find the cave popping up a lot in a lot of creationism material off the bat. I knew about it because of this Gish stuff. At the same time, they did not explicitly excoriate any particular creationist on this. This was not the point of view that they were dealing with. So anyway, it's a beautiful little analysis of all the different critters and things that goes along. And it's an interesting thing to contrast that what Gish was thinking about. What's a GRN? General Registered Nurse? I don't know. Give us a clue on that, Answers. I do not know every acronym in existence. I think my brain would turn into mush if I did. We will do what we can. So remember, this is also a Luskin week, and we've got a couple more things which are not helping their case. Remember, we started out in this long series. We're at episode 56. Gene regulatory network. Oh, duh. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Of which has got layers and layers of factors going on. There's a degree to which epigenetics hits into this. And of course, all of that material that involves ALU retrotransposons and other kinds of things that can do cross connections and stuff that turns things on and off or methylates things is plowing into that area that the Luskin list is obsessing on. So far, what's been significant about this is that as we've been plowing down through what is the sign section, the first big monster section of the Luskin list, that the earliest stuff were the most recent. So that was material from 2025, 24, 23, early 2020s. And now, as we've been dumping down through this stuff, we've been plowing back. We were hitting the 2019s, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. How long is this going to go on? I don't know. I haven't been anal retentive about going down through the list and kind of getting a jab of what's going on in here. But the problem is, for the Luskin argument, is that since we know where the lay of the land is in the 21st century, in the 2020s, can there ever possibly be a case where any of these earlier papers are going to be undermining the conclusions that are already operating up in the 2020s papers? It's ridiculous, seeing how the gods' little fingers make fruit flies. All of them involve ALUs. There's a they've got this Hoffman paper, which I'll be able to put the whole link up to, and it relates to MDM regulation, of which the third one in this little listing or the second one in this MDM group, this MDM4, I discovered when I was searching around in my data field, is a cancerous oncogene. And I'll give some information on that from a 2009 paper from Atwal, which incidentally is not on the Luskin list. The idea is not that the Hoffman paper, in fact, suggests that ALUs might be playing to some extent an anti-cancer role in at least some contexts. But because the gene that it's affecting is a cancerous gene, you would have to wonder, and it's a cancerous mutation, you'd have to wonder why God was designing that too. What exactly is going on here? So I think it's a fair cop that it's falling into a theodicy zone. And then there's a paper from Ollens that is finding ALUs are enriched in, quote, epichromatin of HL60 cell, which is a leukemia cell line that is used to study the effects on things and eventually therapeutic notions and so forth and so on. So by definition, it too is bumping into a theodicy thing. They've got this cell line that they try to use to be able to study the positive or negative effects relating to leukemia, that ALU is affecting the components that are involved with its expression and operation and all that. So we've got inevitably a recurring theme that an awful lot of the air quotes junk DNA, especially ALUs, when they do things, can affect stuff that's in fact involving illnesses. And then we get to this other paper, Ulbrich et al. Again, we'll be putting up the full text of the thing or Kenneth Copeland is sick. Not sure how true it is. Well, mentally, he's been sick for an awful long time. He has been an annoying nerd and full culture camp screwball for at least the last 40 years. And one might argue that the existence of such people is very good proof that there are no gods, because who would tolerate such jerks in a proper context? At any rate, this Ulbrich paper had a quote in it right from the abstract, and therefore Luskin or whoever put this on the list had to have had this right under their nose. So why would they want to bring it up? Quote, a small subset of edited ALU elements has been shown to exhibit diverse functional roles in the regulation of alternative splicing, miRNA repression, and cis-regulation of distant RNA editing sites. The low level of editing for the remaining majority may be non-functional, yet their persistence in the primate genome provides enhanced genomic flexibility that may be required for adaptive evolution. So at most, it's an indication that there's this landscape of activity genetically that is not necessarily immediately doing anything, but acts as like a palette that mutations can work out. And if it doesn't kill you, can end up being actually adaptively dynamic. It's just kind of like the primates are skating along a little edge that's a dangerous little precipice, but also a useful one because it gives them opportunities for shifts that ones that don't particularly have these things available in their genome would find it trickier to do, even if they end up, in many cases, not having as much healthy issues going on. It'd be fun to have known what kind of ALUs were going on in any of our rival hominids knocking around, because these things go way back in the primates. So we can assume that everybody in the various groups amongst the Australopithecines and Paranthropus and all of that would have had these things knocking around. Did that positively or negatively contribute to the dynamic of these things? There would presumably have been less ALUs to play with in the early stages because they are constantly being increased. So presumably wouldn't have had millions of them as we now currently have in our human species. But nonetheless, so anyway, that puts us up to date on the latest Luskin material. Will be a fun thing to see over the course of time. How far back are they trawling for source material? Category, because they have these things broken down by short and long-term things and that, and those are much smaller groups that I have located in my spreadsheet. And I'm trying to now get rid of a thing. They want me to explore OneDrive. Nope. Whether or not they'll reset at the beginning of each one of these categories and put some newer papers in, we'll find out. I don't think we're going to be having any further examples of duplication. There were one or two that we encountered earlier in the cycle that turned out to be double dipped, where he's citing them farther down the list as if it's a fresh paper. So I've removed those from the master count, the double dip. So when we finally get down to the end, we're roughly around 200 of the papers. So we're maybe a quarter of a wayish through because they were reluctant to say exactly how many, 800-ish. We'll be able to find out one way or the other. But so far, none of it is disconfirming the main point in question, that 5, 10, 15, upper boundary of 20% of junk DNA could be deemed to be actually doing something. And therefore, that means 80, 85, 90% are not. They are still junk DNA. And happy-go-lucky Luskin and company can blather on about this as hope springs eternal, but like the second coming or Donald Trump developing a conscience, don't bet on it. So that puts us into that little boundary. We'll be, again, having a little foray into a lot of creationist stuff that's going to be showing up in our next little chapter. I'm intrigued to see just exactly how much paleontological literature, because this is about fossils after all, the Gish books. The only material that I had delved into or tried to in great detail back in the day for the old TIP project was the stuff that I had access to in the early 2000s. And boy, there wasn't a hell of a lot available on there. So I should have a much better chance of glomming on to a lot of the primary source technical material, unless it's very obscure or very old, as we maneuver through here. And what we'll be wanting to do is looking at what he's cherry picking and why. Versatile. Oh, yes. Let me put that up on here. Boop-a-doop. Move my little mouse around there. Yeah, the from a point of view of scientific curiosity, this is a golden age. We have just a spectacular array of technical works that are available open access. So nobody, absolutely nobody, on any modern subject of any science, or for that matter, history and culture, has any reason to be ignorant on, because we have way too much available. However, for people who have extremely bad methods, who are prone to relying on secondary sources, I can only tell people, if you're really interested in a topic, why not jump to the primary sources, kids, because it's available. And if it discourages you to read a primary source because it's over your head, that's a clue that in order for you to be able to discourse effectively on it, you need to bone up on stuff. Remember, I'm a historian by training. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a paleontologist. I'm not a geologist. I'm not a cosmologist or an astrophysicist. But I can read, and I can guarantee you that the techniques of source analysis, where you're looking up terminology, if you don't understand it, you can see the dynamics. You can look at the issues of whether a particular topic is contentious or not. Are people stammering back and forth? And if so, what? You can get the lay of the land in any discipline whatsoever. Beneath the surface. Yes. Sharing the creationists are having meltdowns. Multiple rely on dialogical malady. Oh, yes, conferences and all that are fun. Although you can bet that if there's any anti-evolutionists either attending, and there would be no reason why some wouldn't, and or they're going to be reporting on it for their apologetics frame, just like all of these various conferences, Wistar and all of that going back into the 1960s, and the stuff that the Royal Society was doing just a few years back. They're playing it all up and misrepresenting the content, and Stephen Meyer will have something stupid to say about it. Last one, if you poke around, it's an article that overviews the research on this. Yes. The idea that there are larger systems of individual genetic components that end up collectively having a very great dynamic as units is extremely productive. I'm sure Zach Hancock would be following into that same element, as he's pointed out, as to why the old style genetics still works so well, even though it technically doesn't require knowing the point mutations that are going on, the actual DNA strains. Although there are people who study all of that aspect of it too. And you have to ask, why is that so? And that's because there is an upper level of how systems are interconnecting, in the same way that organisms, or at least sexually reproducing ones, don't reproduce as individual genes. They're reproducing as a genetic organism, and therefore they're taking everything in the genome along with them, good, bad, and ugly. Junk DNA and silenced genes and varying alleles and all that other stuff is all taken over as a unit, and that in turn is operating within a larger population. So my impression of the whole modality issue and genetic regulatory networks is that it involves the need to be interdisciplinary, so that you're looking at it from not just the molecular biologist point of view and the developmental biologist point of view and all these others, but they're putting in their input because each one has a slightly different perspective, and they're kind of looking at the old cliche of the elephant from a different angle. And that stuff is ongoing. At least one of, hello, Brian. Yes, we've just been having a slight digression on the wonderful stuff that Answers in Atheism was bringing up about, let's see. Well, I don't have my master bibliography open. Otherwise, I would look up the Chouard thing. Let's see, what do we got floating around in there? Chode 2008 beneath the surface ball. I may have to poke around on all that. Oh, and by the way, answers then once the video is up, just jump in. And if you have links to any of the technical papers that would be of interest to them, put them in our comments for the video, and it'll pop up when I put in the main source links and stuff for it, and I'll be able to look at that and say, woo, thumbs up and all that kind of stuff, so everybody can figure out what's going on here. And so this is just a delightful thing to be able to look around at all this technical literature. And it's also another factor that we can say that none of this work is being done by creationists. You might find that there would be some anti-evolutionists co-authors lurking around in the corners in the same way that Scott Minnick is an intelligent design guy that does actual work on bacterial flagella. And then you've got kind of at the philosophical end, what's his name that does all of the, Bunn, I think, the plant guy, who has sort of caught religion thing, and he occasionally weighs in on where Adam and Eve lived and how many hundreds of thousands of years ago that might have been. Runs into Swamidas and some of these other people thrashing over this stuff. But by and large, you have a handful, as in maybe 20 current do some occasional active publication other than in creationist journals. So you get little bits of Jason Lyle and company that still pop up every now and then in the actual astrophysics literature. You get little sidebar stuff on geology from some of the young Earth creationists that plop around in that area. And over in the intelligent design side, although I haven't seen too much from him lately, but Michael Denton occasionally does some paper. He's just enamored of Platonic structures in biology. And because he's high enough on the food chain in terms of connections and stuff, he still has stuff published. And indeed, that ginormous data set that creationists compile for the directionality of water flow that they thought was going to support the flood, water going in, water going out. That was put up at one of the Nature's websites, perfectly fine data field, that they were thinking was going to be able to support their model, well, only if you cherry pick. And we're alluding to that a little bit in the new books and that as well. So anyway, there we are. We got 45 minutes in. Whoops! I need to thank our people who have stuck with us all of this time, because we do have our friends in patron land, and I am mindful always of the fact that kids, you're sticking with the old RJ month on month, and given the fact how increasingly economically dicey everything is. Everybody has to keep their powder dry. We don't know how long it is before we get a depression or downturns in areas as all of the idiot Trump tariffs and all these things ripple through our economy. And maybe we get some speed bumps if the AI bubble breaks and all of that. But anyway, thanks to all the patrons, our colleagues, researchers, assistant researchers, friends, and legacy patrons over the years that have been able to help out. It's been mucho apreciado. And so always those who stick with it, keep your powder dry. Here we go, Cambridge. Yeah. Make sure then also to put that later on when the video finishes and we get all organized, then put them in the comments section so that everybody else can see the things. Because in my view, the more people share information, it speeds up the whole interaction process. Lordy be, our little science network that we have that goes on the sidelines that I'm involved with, and Danstern Cardinale, Gutsick Gibbon, Dapper Dinosaur, the geologist Answers in Rocks, and all these different people, Colton, and we just got a pile up of folk knocking around in that, Zach Hancock and all the rest. And it means that people are bringing up, in addition to political things, which are also a matter of concern, but also any science works that are within their disciplines. And of course, anything that's really cutting edge likelihood is that one of them is going to be covering it on their various videos. So follow them, and you have this interconnecting network of people who are collectively doing way more research than individuals could possibly do. And I know as a working scholar that there ain't enough time in the day to be able to keep track of the thousands of technical journals across the field. But if you have a network of half a dozen or more really clever people who do keep track of these things between one or the other of them, wow, you can keep your threads on tons of stuff. So that's on my little soapbox for the day. Let's put up our little Rocks Were There advertisement, where we will presumably be doing a brand new one once the new book is finished, being to get it out by the autumn or time. Okay, that gets that to go. Let's move that back over there. Boop. And moving my stupid little mouse around. We are not as bad temperature here in Spokane as we have been in other sections of the country, although we are going to be up into the mid-90s next week. But remember, we have low humidity here on the Columbia Basalt, so 93 here is far more comfortable than 75 would be in New York.
Are you recording a podcast, or you want to call it?
Oh, this is the end of my little commercial that Peter did for the book. I show that all the time. So presumably he'll be doing a new one, presumably for the new book.
Is this a recording?
Nope, live.
Oh, okay.
Your voice is being heard.
Oh.
And if you lean in, boop, 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 boop.
The crowd will spot
Brian!
My visage.
Yes.
Yes.
People that are here doing things and such and so and so. Yes, indeed. So there we go.
Yeah. Jim is an old friend from a local atheist group. Pleasure to know him.
Yes, we all had big guests or friends over. We were just watching a Peter Ustinov double feature of watching Peter Ustinov in the We're No Angels from 1954, and then Peter Ustinov in Topkapi in 1964, for which he won another supporting actor Oscar. 440 Amy. Yeah, see, we've got people from all over the place here. There's somebody in various time zones. Occasionally we get, that's why I like it here in Oregon.
Somebody out late in Oregon as well.
Yeah, and then once in a while. But although, frankly, as I do on most of the videos that I am looking at, I'm watching them after the fact, because by then you have links available and you can stop it and flip through, like I was doing with the guy on that stupid Trump movie. There that he's dealing with. You get going on that, and I kind of want to finish all of that stuff. But the world of information that needs to be brought out to talk about why certain people are stupid is unending. Yeah. And since Jackson and I keep writing books on these topics, remember the next one after Rocks Were There is it'll be a few years down the road, I suspect, but it's all on conspiracy thinking, and so there's going to be tons on anti-vaxxers and flat earthers and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, so, Minnesota.
Yeah.
You guys are.
Yes, Answers and Atheists. He was one that we'd be bumping into a lot on. You don't know Cy Strike, the late Cy Strike, who is the reason why I do these videos.
Oh.
I got involved with the little thing where we would get on, and it was usually dumping on flat Earth videos and stuff like that. And so we would be doing snarky comments along the side, talking about the idiocy of what we were watching. And I became kind of like one of the various pundits that was invited back and the like. And then Cy Strike said, shit, kid, you need to do videos. And he browbeat me and made sure that I ended up to start do videos.
I think it's a good thing. Like you get people like myself, for example. I came from Seventh-day Adventists and discovered all of this bullshit on my own. And later on, met Jim in our local groups. And
yeah, I'm the weird mutant from a non-religious secular family.
yeah, that you've ran into the middle of these groups is interesting enough on its own.
Oh yeah, yeah, we had a lot of fun, and in fact, Sidestrike, you can hear his voice and see me because he went down to the Ark Encounter, 2019-ish, around in that period. He unfortunately had a heart attack and later and slammed into a poor tree and all that. We all miss Sidestrike. Anyway, he did a multi-part series touring with his friend through the Ark Encounter, and then I came along and did color commentary. So we would be watching the things and I would be describing the little blips and pieces and all of that stuff, including the one on Pimp That Ark.
Oh dear.
Yes, yes.
The Ark Encounter is chock full of tidbits that people like yourself can absolutely tear to shreds.
And for me, I was jumping on the labels on the little cages with their little animatronic dinosaurs and crap in them, because they were in at least two major cases. They are doing stuff that violates old style creationism. Yes, grew up in evangelicalism. Yes, 3.1 pi minute conversation with Mitch. Oh dear.
Yeah, my family is, at least the older people in my family are all Seventh Adventists. Another friend that visits here, he was a Mennonite,
ex-Mennonite,
right? So we've all had our various path, and then Jim just doesn't have any history of it.
Yeah, Mormons in the family way back before I came along, but nonetheless, yes, and there was even a polygamous downward back in the Mormon tree in there a ways back. But my dad left the family when he got out and joined the Army and the Navy right after World War One. He lied to get into the Army. He was only 16. He lied at it.
They did that.
At any rate, he discovered to his amazement there were non-Mormons in the world, and they seemed to get along just fine without being Mormon. So he just went, whoop, no more. And the story my mother told about him is that they were all the Mormons in the family were saying, "Oh, Mo, Rulin, you're going to go to hell because you're not in the church anymore." And my dad's answer apparently was, "Oh, well, I'll install a stoker so we can handle the coal, shoveling the stuff into the fires. We'll work around it and that." So that comes to get a little bit arrangement in that front. So I grew up in a totally secular family. We put up Christmas trees, we did little Easter eggs and all that, but never, we had Bibles and Book of Mormon in the house and all that if I wanted to look at it. And then I mentioned that
journeys to the church were part of the experience.
Well, and in fact, when my mom, when I first started school, and old Willard school over there, they trotted kids down for a half hour of Bible class in public school. Yeah.
Wow.
And the moment my mom found out about that, she yanked me out of that in a hurry.
It's so crazy
She said, if I want to have my child instructed in a religion, I will do it. That's not your job. I'm sending my kid to school to learn things. So I had an extra reading thing because I was already reading books by that time.
Yeah, up until seventh grade. Seventh grade myself, my family sent me to a Seventh Adventist private school here in the city.
Condolences.
Yeah. So I got Bible classes and they were boring as hell.
This would have been just basic, it wasn't Adventist or anything. I think it was like a Baptist or something like that. It was down on Garland Street.
Well, the extent of our Bible classes was find this passage, find this missing word, fill in the blank, don't think about it, just barf it back out.
That's very, very traditional material. Anyway, so there we are. That's Brian. That's me and Jim, all of that in here in Spokane.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. And we've got a whole hour show out of the way, I think. We're at, 48 minutes. That'll do. We put up our adverts. Buy the books. They're swell. Buy the Paralogs of Fog's books that are outside of the screen. Way up on the top. We will get volume 3 out of the way, the third book in the Paralog series, 3 of 12, if I live long enough, and I fully intend to outlive at least Mitch McConnell, and I've already outlived Lindsey Graham. No small accomplishment.
If I don't get to
He's younger than I was.
Yeah. If I don't get to the Evolution Slam Dunk and the rocks were there myself, I'll have to buy them later because I definitely will.
Yes, I can use the money, buy them.
Oh, yeah, I know.
You'll get it. I can autograph the copy and all that stuff. So anyway, everybody stay super duper safe. Watch out for the laser wielding penguins down on the ice wall of the taco flavored earth, shaped earth. And we will see you kids all next week. Okay. Oh yeah, early at public school, Mount Art sent us to one of the churches for air quotes religious area. Yeah, a lot of this stuff went on surreptitiously below the waterline areas, just as establishment of the church. The various states, when the Constitution was set up, I think like a third or more of the states had established churches. But as we moved into the republic, they all got rid of all of that because it was no longer okay in our technically secular constitution. So anyway, everybody, stay put, stay safe, and we will be seeing you all next